and welcome to札幌学院University's Community College Global Issues in English. And today's topic is renewable energy. Before we start, I recommend that you visit this page where you can find some vocabulary support and some language exercises to help you with this topic. Now, when we think about renewable energy, we usually think about solar power and wind power. Wind power may be onshore or offshore. In fact, we have various types of renewable energy, and I'll show you some of these. Hydropower, of course, is using water from dams to produce electricity. And what is called biofuels, modern biofuels, wood chips used for heating and other purposes. And traditional biofuels is using wood in developing countries for heating and cooking. Of course, we also have geothermal energy, very useful in countries with volcanoes like Iceland and New Zealand, and of course Japan. And then tidal energy, using the energy from sea currents and waves to produce electricity. Now, today's talk will be partly bad news in part one and good news in part two. And at the end, perhaps you can decide which you agree with. Let's start with some bad news. For example, what percent of total world energy comes from solar, wind, geothermal and tidal power? What percent of total world energy, all the world energy? Do you think it's about 23%, about 12%, or about 3%? The answer, I'm afraid, is only about 3%. Still, most of our energy in the world comes from coal and oil and gas, still making up about 80% of the world's energy needs. And of the renewables, solar and wind just make up about 3%, then plus hydro, water power, and biofuels, 9%. Total about 20% comes from renewable energies. So very, very little. And we can see in history that for many, many years, wood was the main source of energy. And then in the 19th and 20th century, coal, of course, became powerful. And then oil, very important. And then finally gas. And this needs the renewables. It's a very small space at the top. So really, renewables are a very, very small part of our energy needs. When we think about renewable energy, we mostly think about electricity, our electric lights, our computers, but in fact electricity only makes up about 17% of the total world energy that we need. 32% is taken up with transport, with buses, cars, trains, and 51% is made up of heating. And let's just look at these in detail. The heating part, 51% of the world's energy, is mostly used in factories to produce energy, to produce steel and other materials. And unfortunately, only 10% of our heating needs comes from renewable energy. For transport, the situation is even worse. Only 3% of transport uses renewable energy. This is gasoline made, called ethanol, made from corn or from sugar. And then finally, the electricity is better. It makes 17% of our total energy needs, and we get 26.4% from renewable sources. Now here's a quiz. Which type of renewable energy do you think gives us most power? Do you think wind power, hydropower, solar power, or geothermal power? The answer is very clearly hydropower, giving us more than 50%, in fact 63% of all renewable energy. Onshore wind, 18%. This is the offshore wind area. Solar, only 8.3%. Biofuels, only 5.5%. So really the challenges for renewables are very, very serious. All right, now perhaps we can look at a more positive side of renewables, and that is how quickly they are increasing. So if we look at wind power from this very small level in 2009, increasing very, very quickly up to 651 gigawatts in 2019. So we're getting a huge increase. Although it's a very small level, it's increasing very, very quickly. Around the world for electricity, we can see various countries are moving up very quickly, producing, for example, in Japan, 10% of electrical needs now from renewables. In the UK, 33%. In fact, every country moving up, and the world, of course, moving up very quickly to 10% of electrical needs from solar and wind power. With solar power, again, we can see the costs of solar power coming down very, very quickly. This is the cost of solar panels, and also the cost of producing electricity from solar panels is coming down very, very fast. In fact, in the United States, 300 times cheaper than in the 1970s. Solar power also increasing at a very large rate, 627 gigawatts year by year, big increases. Japan is here, and we can see increases year by year. So this is a very positive move. And again, the costs of electricity coming down and down. And we see here that wind and solar power are now cheaper than coal and gas, and cheaper than nuclear power. So the costs are coming down and down very, very quickly. Here again, we can see the costs falling very, very fast. Also, each year we can see the increases year by year. The solar power panels, the wind power, every year more and more coming online. Some other good news of new technologies, many, many new technologies coming on. One example is this material called perovskite. These are panels that might replace the silicon panels that we now have. Perovskite is more flexible and maybe produces about 33% more energy than the present panels. So this is very, very good news for the future technologies. We're also getting much more energy efficiency, intelligent buildings which can control the temperature and their cooling and themselves produce electricity. We're getting low energy machines and applications, for example, LED lights using much less electricity. If you buy a low energy refrigerator now, it'll use way less energy than it did 20 years ago. And the circular economy, reusing and recycling materials, uses much less energy than making them anew. Other good news is the number of electric cars. We can see, particularly in China and the USA, the number of electric cars are increasing very quickly. Of course, the electricity that they use should be renewable, and that's an important thing to remember. And let's look at one country here, a case study in China, because China is such an important player. If we look at China, the solar capacity in China is huge, a lot of solar power in China, much more than the USA in number 2, Japan number 3, but China very, very much in the lead. In wind power, China produces 36% of the world's wind energy, so China is very much a leader in these renewable energy technologies. Other good news, China is the number 1 in producing hydropower as well. Brazil, Canada, US, and Japan down here, 2% of its energy comes from hydropower. Also in China, the yellow is the electric cars, so they are producing more and more electric cars and using more and more electric cars. On the other hand, China is the world's leader in coal production by a huge margin, producing much more coal than any other country in the world. And China is also building more new coal power plants every year. So huge negative effects of fossil fuels as well. So we have the balance of good news and bad news coming out of China especially. How about Japan? Not so good, I'm afraid. Again, coal, gas and oil make up about 80% of Japan's energy, and the renewables just about 20% all put together if you include nuclear power as well. So not good. However, on the other hand, Japan is dynamically increasing its renewable energy sources. and it has a target of 27% of its energy, renewable energy by 2030, and it will probably reach more than that by that time. Japan is planning to have more and more electric cars, from about 4,000 now to about 800,000 in 2030, so very big changes. And Japan is cutting some of the older power plants, perhaps using less and less coal year by year. So this is not so bad. Things are changing very, very quickly. So in conclusion, negative things, greenhouse gases are not decreasing. Renewable energy still makes up a very small percentage of our energy needs, very, very small. And we are doing too little, too late. We must be more aggressive in our policies. But on the plus side, renewables are increasing very quickly. New technologies are being developed. Energy efficiency is improving with low energy equipment. And increasingly, more and more, renewables are good business. Fossil fuels, especially coal, are not good business. And in the end, money talks. So these are the negatives and the positives, but certainly the 21st century, this is the biggest challenge that human beings will face, and how we respond to this challenge will decide our futures in the world. And in the final analysis, the policy perhaps is hope for the best, plan for the worst. Thank you for watching. See you again.